Lord, I come, I confess, bowing here, I find my rest. Without you, I fall apart. You're the one who guides my heart. Lord, I need you, oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness, oh God, how I need you. Where sin runs deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. And where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need every hour. I need my one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. So teach my song to rise to you. When temptation comes my way, and when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. So teach my soul to rise to you. When temptation comes my way, and when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, we need you. Lord, we need you. Oh, we need you. Every hour we need you. Our one defense, our righteousness. Oh God, how we need you.
Hey guys, my name is Josh and I work with our house churches and our students here at Ethos. I'm really thankful and excited to be spending some time reflecting on the scriptures with you this morning and fixing our eyes on Jesus. If you were with us last week, you remember that we focused on what God has done and how we remember, how we celebrate that. Today, the first Sunday of the year, we're going to spend some time looking ahead and dreaming about what's possible if we really believe that there's more of God for us this year. Our text this morning is going to be Luke chapter 10. I invite you, if you have a Bible or a phone, to turn to those verses right now. It's Luke chapter 10. We're going to be in the final 4 or 5 verses there. I really believe there's something super exciting and hopeful about a new year. I believe this is why we set resolutions or goals, so that we can accomplish things. So maybe this year you're setting out to learn an instrument, or to lose some weight, or to spend more time investing in your extended family, or whatever it is. You may have hundreds of different goals, you may not have any, but I think it's a common thing for us to set goals because we believe that if we readjust and maybe sacrifice a few things in our life, we can live more fully to be the people that we want to be. That's kind of the whole goal behind resolutions. And today in Luke chapter 10, we're going to look at a contrast between two sisters and see Jesus in the midst of it. And I think he has a very clear word for us here in Nashville in 2016. So if you want to open up your Bibles, we're going to start in verse 38 of Luke chapter 10. It says, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha was opening up her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he had said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made, and we find out that Jesus and his disciples are traveling. We don't know if they are where they're headed from or where they're going. We don't even know where they are right now. All we know is that Martha, this woman, meets them, and she's extremely hospitable towards them, and she invites them to come stay at their home and prepares a meal for them. Any of us who've been traveling, you've spent a lot of time in a car or maybe on a plane, you know you're really worn out even after not expending much energy when you travel by sitting down. But these days, they would be walking for miles and miles, so over paths and who knows what kind of roads and different things. But you have to know Jesus is deeply appreciative of Martha's hospitality shown towards him and his disciples, and it's really a cool thing. And the next thing we notice is that we see Martha's posture, and we see Mary's posture very different. We see that when Jesus walks into the house, Martha's priority is to make sure that the travelers are taken care of. So she's tidying up and moving and organizing and changing things so that they can be taken care of. And we see Mary sits down at the feet of Jesus and she listens to him. Jesus was a teacher, and this was a normal practice in those days, is that when a teacher would come, out of a sign of respect, you would sit at his feet and you would listen to what he has to say. And there's a little bit of conflict brewing as we continue reading in verse 40. It says, but Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to Jesus and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. We find out that Martha is stressed out. She is worn out from trying to prepare a meal and make sure every little detail is right. And it is overwhelming her, and she gets mad at her sister, who is seemingly doing nothing. And I don't know if you've been there, but I've been there 100 times. I think recently about a time where we're having some friends over for dinner, and I tried to make a new dish that I'd never made before, and I'm not a very good cook, and I got stressed out, and I made a mess, and I forgot stuff, I was distracted, and it was just total disaster. And it was 15 minutes before they're going to come, and I'm not thinking we're going to have a meal. I'm about to call Jets and throw in the towel, but my mother-in-law shows up at the last minute, and she helps me finish the meal somehow in the next 20 or 30 minutes, and I have a meal ready to go. And I had lost sight. In the midst of the chaos, I was so focused on having a perfect meal, and I had missed out that we're going to spend time with friends. Like, if we were eating sandwiches, we would have been fine. But I was so just upset and frustrated at myself and how I really screwed it up and all those things. But I had to be reminded that what the really important details were is spending time with friends, and I completely missed that in the chaos. So I relate to Martha, because that's exactly what's going on. She is fuming, she is doing good things, but she is upset with her sister, so she wants justice. So she approaches Jesus thinking that he's going to be on her side. And here's what Jesus says in verse 41. It says, Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are necessary, or indeed only one. And Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. I love that Jesus leads with Martha, Martha. Shows her a lot of compassion. He doesn't beat her up with words or to say anything that just like makes her feel guilty or shameful. He just said, why? Like, why are you anxious and worried about so many things? It's like, you have plenty of opportunities for that to happen, but you're missing out on what is going on. Like, the living God who created all things is in your living room. And you're focused on all the details, and you are missing out on the best thing that's happening all around you. And this is so common of my life, and I think it's common in a lot of our lives, is when we run into a friend somewhere we haven't seen in a while, the first question we typically ask is, how are you doing? And the common response is, I'm doing well, or I'm doing good. And then we follow that up by saying, but I'm busy. I'm running from expectation to expectation, event to event, responsibility to responsibility, and we can't catch up. We're frustrated, we're spent, we're furious, and we start lashing out like Martha did and accusing other people for our problems. And it brings out the worst in ourselves when we're not getting time being reminded who we are and what we're doing, because we just can't. We can't say yes to the things that we really want to say yes to because we have so many other commitments. And this is the cycle so often. But I love that Jesus looks at Martha and he looks at us, and as he says, Martha, Martha, and imagine him looking at me, looking at you and saying, Josh, Josh, or my son, my daughter, why? It's like, you have the living God here. Like, he is available. And we believe that in Jesus, that we can bring our baggage. And Jesus is looking at her and saying, you don't have to live this way. Like, I can help you, guide you. If you just take some time and be with me and listen to me, I will remind you who you are, and I will give you new purpose for the mission that's out before you. And it's a beautiful thing as he shows the contrast between Martha and between Mary, because there are hundreds of thousands of opportunities this year that you will have to stress, to be frustrated, to be overwhelmed. And Jesus is gently reminding us that if we don't spend time being reminded of who we are, we're going to get burnt out and frustrated and not be able to say yes to the things that we're being called to say. Because when we spend time with Jesus, his words like to Mary and here to Martha, we receive words of life, words that Jesus reminds us that he resurrects things that are dead. Jesus has words for us of identity, that we are his sons and daughters, that we are perfectly loved and he is pleased with us. And Jesus also has words of purpose, that he came and willingly entered our mess and brought light to dark situations to help us be able to do that and partner with him. And he has words of presence, that he will never abandon us or forsake us. And if we really believe this as a church, that there is more of God for all of us, no matter where you are on your journey, that if you are a deeply committed Christian who's been walking with Jesus for 40 years, or you're just starting your journey, or maybe you don't even believe yet, or maybe you're in a high or a low, wherever you are on the spectrum, there is more of God for you. And that is a beautiful thing. And how we receive that is we take the posture of Mary, who had her own responsibilities. She had her own chaos in her life, but she didn't miss out on the living God who was in her living room. She spent time, she brought her baggage to Jesus. She was reminded who she was, and she was able to live her life differently. And I love this because so many times I found myself in Martha's situation, but Jesus gives us an invitation into something so much more beautiful. So what if we really believed there was more of God for us wherever we were? What if we actually slowed down and spent time listening to God? What if as a family this year, with our individual families, we'd spent time opening up Scripture together, taking communion together, worshiping together? What might God do with us? I believe the potential is unlimited if we create some space to rest and to be with God, to say no to some things, so that when God has interruptions for our lives, we can say yes and be a part of those things and not be stressed and worn out by them. So in 2016, if we've been living like Martha and are lost in the details, frustrated and stressed, let's take up the mantle of Mary here and take her posture to sit at our Creator's feet, who is very real. He's very near and available. And so I have a question for you that I kind of want us to wind our time down focusing and thinking about, that I think will help us sit at Jesus' feet. And here's the question, if you want to write it down or put it in your phone. How will I create margin in my life to listen to and respond to God this year? How will I create margin in my life to listen to and to respond to God this year? I believe if we take this seriously, we will discover more of God. We will be able to interact with more of God and be reminded who we are and live more fully out on mission. If you're taking communion today with your house church or with your family, I encourage you as you hold the bread, if you've been living in a situation like Martha and you're frustrated, just receive the response that Jesus has for her, a response of compassion, love, grace, and freedom, and accept what he's offering today. And let 2016 be a year that we really believe that there is more of God for all of us. So let's spend some time thinking and dreaming and praying about how we can pursue the presence of God this year as a church family.